welcome to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David. Today we're going to look at the top 10 bottom 5 films that we screened here at Cinema Wellman for the month of June. Previous podcast YouTube channel episode had us go through July, and I figured that you might as well hear about June as well. And maybe, again, come up with a film or two that you've never heard of or might pique your interest and you might want to see it. That's what we're here for, and we'll watch it first here and pass the news along, good or bad. We're going to start like we always do, and that's at the bottom with the bottom 5. So the 5th worst film screened here at the cinema in June was from 1939. It's Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney in Babes in Arms. And you might say, why are you picking on a probably wonderful musical from back in the day with, hey, it's Judy Garland, hey, it's Mickey Rooney. Hey, they had them perform in blackface. And if you've read previous blogs, you know how I feel about that. It's something that was a part of entertainment back in the day in early stage shows and burlesque shows and early Hollywood. Never any reason for it. Always offensive, always racist, always inexcusable. But we see it, and we see it in Hollywood films, and we see people taking part in this that we wouldn't suspect to take part in such a thing. To their credit, now I watched this on TCM, and TCM at the end of it, might have been in the beginning of it. Either way, the beginning or the end. Kudos to TCM for airing a short film that attempted to explain, at least, why that was something that was considered acceptable. And again, it gets bottom 5 because of the use of it. And I've never always disliked Mickey Rooney, but to see Judy Garland in blackface kind of broke my heart a bit. And it, again, kudos to TCM for airing that short that attempted to explain, not justify, but explain why it was done in the first place. So that's number 5 on the bottom 5. Number 4 on the bottom 5 is from 1989, and it's a film titled Puppet Master. And I'll explain why I ended up watching this. I came across the synopsis of it, a mention of it somewhere, and I looked it up in my archives where I keep a list of every film I've ever watched, and I was stunned that I somehow missed a really bad horror movie from 1989. Shocked that I had never seen this. One of the puppets is made to look like the actor Klaus Kinski. And Klaus Kinski, little Klaus Kinski puppet with a knife. And how I missed that, I am not sure. I do have a problem with puppets, especially, murderous puppets. Puppets can't be trusted, kind of like monkeys. But puppets with leeches coming out of their mouths and everything. And this was awful from the start. And one of those that I had to look myself in the mirror and say, you pressed the button, you chose this. No one asked you to watch this. No one recommended it. It wasn't on one of your lists. And I do have many lists, and I'm going to watch all the films on those lists. But you'll notice that in my posts on Twitter or Instagram, if you see the hashtag, it's on a list, not my idea. It's on a list of either Academy Award nominees or some other cult movie list or some other kind of list. I'm a list guy, and that sometimes gets in my way. Anyway, all right, so that's number 4. Number 3, you can find on, I think, Netflix, if you dare. It's titled Thevoyers, and it is billed as a mystery suspense thriller. Mystery, suspense, thriller, and it has none of those things. So this was This was something that it distracted me from the beginning. The lead actor has a voice that I'm not sure if I've not seen him in other things. I don't know if that's his natural voice, but if it's his real voice, I have no idea how he ever got casted because it was a distraction for me from the get-go. There's an older viewers and listeners will understand this reference. There is a Porky's level of gratuitous nudity in this movie, and there are also mind-boggling decisions made by so many different characters in this. Add to that a preposterous ending that my jaw dropped. They're going to end it like this? Is seriously? You're going to do that? My daughter was ill and in quarantine, and we were texting back and forth, and I was throwing out different films for her to watch while she was in bed and resting up. And I said, well, I just watched this and it was terrible. Let me know what you think. And while she watched it, I was getting texts like, is she going to... And then a minute later, yeah. So that's the kind of movie it is. You look at it and you say, wait, hold, what are you... Oh, okay. You're going to do that anyway. So, again, I would love for you to watch this and tell me I'm wrong. I mean, tell me that it was suspenseful. And again, I'm not here to debate you, Jerry, but, if you disagree, you can disagree. I just found this was annoying, and especially the ending. And the lead actress is a young woman who's in Euphoria, which I have not watched, so I can't vouch for that. But she's, from what I saw, she's better than this. And hopefully she gets other roles in the future that are going to showcase things other than her body. All right, number 2 on the bottom 5 of June. I'll have to blame my daughter a little bit because she loves corgis, and I'm going to give her 20% of the blame, and I'm going to take the other 80% of the blame because I found it. I ran across this. Number 2 on the list is a film. It's an animated film titled The Queens Corgi. And my daughter Hannah loves corgis. So when I came across this, I was like, oh, how cute. Corgis. And we know the Queen has corgis, and I'm not a big fan of the Queen or the royal family, but whatever. Corgis are cute. This is good. She and I were together. We're watching. I got a film. Guess what I found for you? I've got an animated movie that it's got corgis. And it was fantastic. This is going to be wonderful. And we both sat there and looked at each other and said, this is way worse than I ever thought it could ever be. You have an animated film about little dogs, but you bring in an animated appearance by the guy that used to be president, the one with the orange hair, and in the animated version of him is not much better. This movie's offensive. It is supremely unfunny, and how it was ever thrown out there as a kids movie is absolutely ridiculous. That was just rubbish, to use the English parlance. Listen, every once in a while when I do these top 10 bottom 5s, there are going to be films that are in the bottom 5 that it's going to be like almost wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You should see this, though. It was crap, but you should see this. Queens Corgi is not one of those. Stay away at all costs. Now, number 1 on the list, the worst film that I screened in June this year, might be something that I say, you know what? Watch it. Just go watch it. Again, watch at your own risk. This is a film that was made by a director that I refer to as the king of noisy garbage. And again, I'm just a guy who likes movies. I'm not a director. I'm not a screenwriter. I know nothing. I just watch a lot of movies. But I know that I really dislike Michael Bay's movies. Armageddon, the Transformer, the second Transformer, the third Transformer. They made 5 Transformers movies? They made 5 movies about a toy. A crappy toy. They made 5 movies about that. So this is all, Michael Bay. If the script doesn't work, let's blow something up. And that's what it is. And this one is 100% on me. I went in knowing exactly what I was in for, and I got it. So I really can't complain about this one other than it was laughably ridiculous. When you watch films like this, and I'll bulk in Michael Bay's movies with all of the Fast and the Furious movies. If you've ever experienced reality, you can't watch those because you can't suspend enough of the reality that you have experienced in order to enjoy it. It's just preposterous. So, this is what's going on in Ambulance. There's an ambulance, and it's in chaotic traffic, smash up, cars flying, everything. Again, Michael Bay. Cars fly. I didn't get the flying cars in the science fiction. Watch a Michael Bay movie, you get the flying cars you were promised in 7th grade. And you get this, so this ambulance is being pursued by every piece of law enforcement that there is in Los Angeles. And every piece of law enforcement that is in Los Angeles is firing upon this ambulance. And in the ambulance, surgery is being performed by a non-surgeon as the ambulance itself is chased and fired upon by law enforcement. So if that cartoon sounds good to you, then go after it, get on it. Nothing against Jake Gyllenhaal, but so that's it for the bottom 5. Bottom 5, Babes in Arms, Blackface. Number 4, Puppet Master. Bad science fiction, bad horror. 3, Thevoyers. Preposterous, especially the ending. 2, The Queens Corgi, and offensive film passed off as a kids movie. And number 1, Ambulance by Michael Bay. And that's the bottom 5. And I was going to say more about Michael Bay, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Here we go. Here's the top 10. Here are some things that you might want to check out, you might want to look at. Number 10 on the top 10 of June was a film from 2003, so way late to the game on this one. I watched it on Netflix, and it's a documentary, and it's a music documentary, and I like music documentaries. And I especially like music documentaries about music that I'm not quite knowledgeable about. And this was one of those. This was 2003's Tupac Resurrection. And Tupac Shakur is someone, I can't say that I'm like a huge fan of hip hop and rap, but the groups that I do like Eric B. and Rakim and Cypress Hill, they're kind of more heavy sounding, in your face kind of thing. Tupac's got more of the R&B into his music. This was unexpectedly, I really enjoyed this for someone that wasn't that familiar with Tupac's music to begin with. one of the things I really liked about this was the fact that the story's told through his own words in audio recordings and writings that that he did, and you obviously get his voice. I didn't know that he survived being shot before he was ultimately shot to death. So there's all sorts of his thoughts and things about being shot and his kind of thinking, this is maybe what this is how it's gonna end for me. And it's kind of chilling. And to see this through the music and through the writings and things like that, very good, especially if you enjoy music documentaries. And again, you don't have to know that much about Tupac Shakur or like his music to appreciate this film. All right, that's number 10. Number 9 is Dystopian Future Alert. Gotta love that. We love dystopian futures. We absolutely love the dystopian future. Now, I wanted to make sure that I read you the IMDb description to this film, and you can kind of understand why I jumped in and wanted to watch this. So here we go, courtesy of our friends at IMDb. In a world where families are limited due to overpopulation, a set of identical septuplets must avoid being put to a long sleep by the government and dangerous infighting while investigating the disappearance of one of their own. Okay, so we have dystopian future. We have futuristic society where population is limited. Very cool stuff to try to explore. And then you have Noomi Rapace, and you might know Noomi Rapace from, she was the girl with the dragon tattoo in the other, in the foreign versions before we kind of ruined it with Daniel Craig. Not that I have anything against Daniel Craig, but Noomi Rapace, Willem Dafoe is in this, and the really sinister, evil government person is played by Glenn Close, and that club is in Glenn Close's golf bag. That is for sure. And it's so fun to see her go through this. Now, so get the whole idea. There are 7 sisters, identicals, and they are each allowed out into the world 1 day a week. And then they sit at home the other 6. And the interesting thing to see is how they try to be one person when they are really 7 people. And I enjoyed this. It's not, listen, whenever you hear me talk about or highlight one of the top 10, listen, I'm not telling anybody that like this is Casablanca and this is gonna be the most decorated and award winning. That's not, again, not the purpose. Not the purpose here. The purpose here is to kind of like, hey, have you heard of this thing? You might want to watch this. So again, that's what I'm here for, and that's what drew me to this. And the other thing that I was interested in was because of, you have to understand, I'm 60 years old, so I've got my wheelhouse of like TV, go back, and I'm just trying to think of who tried to do this. Gilligan's Island did this, Bewitched did this. Noomi Rapace plays all 7 of these siblings. And if you might know where I'm going here, going back to Gilligan's Island and Bewitched, there was almost a black line in between where Bob Denver or Elizabeth Montgomery would be playing the same person, but 2 different, they're 2 different characters, but they're the same person. So that's one of the other reasons I watched this, and amazing. Several times during this film, you see all 7 of the Setman siblings. You see them all sitting together, and it's pretty much seamless. And to credit Noomi Rapace, they all seem to have their own personality, which they obviously do. This was a good one. Again, dystopian future. You had me at dystopian future. All right, let's go to number 8. Number 8 is only going to take you 9 minutes to watch. Number 8 is a film titled Accidents. And Accidents, it's from 2018. Oh, by the way, What Happened on Monday you can find on Netflix. I want to make sure that I mention all the platforms where you can find these in case you are interested in watching. Now, Accidents from 2018, I found it on Criterion. Now, Criterion, you have to have a subscription, but it's well worth that subscription, that's for sure. This is a 9-minute Canadian short film. And if you've seen Rear Window, think of Rear Window and how Jimmy Stewart's character was sitting and he had the whole, like the backyards, the back of the apartment building that his backyard faced. And if you haven't seen Rear Window, I don't know why you're even here. You actually, if you haven't seen Rear Window, shut this off. I'm useless to you. Watch Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. I mean that. That's way up there. That's way, way up there. In any event, so you got the back of the apartment building. Now, in this short film, you see, Jimmy Stewart had, I can't quite remember, maybe 8 apartments. This, I think, ends up, it pulls out, and there are 20 or more. And we are, as viewers, challenged to find a crime that's being committed in one of the apartments. And it's one shot, it's seamless, everything's going on. You see people going up and down the stairs. You see, we saw more than a few crimes. We weren't sure about that whole premise and laying it out that way, try to find the crime. We were like, okay, that's a crime. Well, there's a crime there. That should be a crime. But anyway, it's amazing because you're not being directed where to look. And usually, whether you know it or not, and I'm sure if you're a film fan, that that's why it's called a director. You see what they want you to see. In this sense, you're looking at the back and you've got all these different things and all these different people, and you choose like where you're going to look. And it's really, I've never seen anything like it. And again, that's why I'm here, to throw these things out here. And number 7 on the top 10 is, I think, ultimately going to be in the Hall of Fame or on the Mount Rushmore of the cinema Wellman. Yeah, we watched that. Yeah. Not because it was bad. I've got some background story for this. All right. So this is from 1991, and I watched it on the Criterion channel. And the film's titled Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. And it's got a little backstory to it. So I saw this and I read about it going through the Criterion channel things. And I saw that Richard Linklater, we love Richard Linklater. So instant, I was like, bingo. And then I read that it's all film leader. And you know what I mean? 5, 4, 3. And then, right? 8. Some of them start at 8. Some start at 10. Boop, 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 right? I read that this was an experimental film made by Richard Linklater. And it was all film leader. And I looked at the time. The time was 4:02. And I said, this is fantastic. And I had a friend of mine visit me. And we sat down. And I said, I've got something I want to show you. I think this is going to be in your wheelhouse. I think that we're really going to enjoy this. And so I put it on. And it's really trippy. It's kind of wild. It's all these different boop, 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 and all the natural sounds. So you get all the crackles and all the pops of the old film and everything. And so we're watching it. We're enjoying it and whatever. And it is kind of repetitious and it is kind of hypnotizing. And then I'm thinking, I think it's been more than 4 minutes, because I told my friend that, this is for, we want to watch something goofy for 4 minutes, and then it's on for more than 4 minutes. And so as it's going on, I go on IMDb, and what I read as a film that was 4 minutes and 2 seconds, it was actually 4 hours and 2 minutes. Correct. We shut it off, but there's a rule here at Cinema Wellman, and you'll hear me talk about it often, and it's referred to as the Glengarry rule. And the Glengarry rule is any film that is started must be finished. Now, you don't have to finish it in the same day. I once had a student loan me a Lord of the Rings film that, honest to God, took me a 3-day weekend to get through it. Because I would watch 20 minutes and go, I hate this, but you have to watch it all. Now, it's called the Glengarry rule because this is a famous story with my friends. I rented Glengarry Glen Ross, hated it so much, shut it off, and I think it was 3 or 4 years later, it might have been 5, I had to watch it again. I will not. I am stubborn. I start, I finish. In for a penny, in for a pound. So I am not going to tell you that I sat for 4 hours and 2 minutes of this in a row, but I did watch the entire 4 hours and 2 minutes. And I think it only took me five sittings, 6 sittings, because it is really hypnotizing and trippy, and you kind of get lost, and visually you kind of get dizzy because it is the same thing over and over and over again. The enjoyable part of that really was the odd things that would pop up that you would see people. You're like, what? Or you'd hear music. Richard Linklater, collected all of this film leader from the Austin Film Festival. So we must have had buckets and buckets and bins and bins and bins of all of this leader that he just put together and made into a film. So, you know what? Again, Cinema Wellman, we'll watch it, especially if Richard Linklater makes it. Number six on the best. It's a film that I watched on Netflix, and it is titled Finding Steve McQueen. And I love Steve McQueen. So I was intrigued right from the beginning. I had to at least take a look and see what was going on. So it's a heist movie. One of the main characters thinks that he's kind of like Steve McQueen. The stuff that they're stealing is the money from President Nixon's slush fund, and William Fincher's in it. So check all those boxes. I am watching that. This was fun. It's a fun kind of funny action heist movie. And it had, to me, while watching it and being such a big fan of Steve McQueen, and my favorite Steve McQueen film is Bullet, and Bullet contains the best car chase scene ever. And while I watched this film from 2019 titled Finding Steve McQueen, they had him driving Steve McQueen's car like a lunatic around California, around LA and everything. And there's a green VW next to him. So that told me right there, that was, as my friend Larry says, ooh, that was the chef's kiss. That was just, because in the Bullet car chase scene, he passes the same green VW Beetle 4 times. And that's really like the only thing that's ever said negatively about that chase scene is that, that same car was in it. Whatever. We're watching Steve go all over the bumps in San Francisco, right? So this was fun just for that. If you like a heist movie, I'm all for the heist movies. Heist movies are great. And again, especially if you like Bullet and Steve McQueen, this is a dandy. Number 5 on the top 10 of June was a film that the cast is just tremendous. And again, I've talked about movies that I watch because of the premise. Alice was one of those. That premise, I had to watch that because just reading the premise. This one I had to watch because I saw the cast. So before I tell you what the film is, I'm gonna tell you who the cast is. So Allison Janney, Mila Kunis, Regina Hall, Awkwafina, Wanda Sykes, Matthew Modine, Papa, Ellen Barkin, Juliette Lewis, who I love and haven't seen in forever. All of these great people are in this film, and the film is titled Breaking News in Yuba County. You can find it on Amazon Prime. It's from 2021, and it's so much fun, and it says a lot. It's a little social satire a bit, and it explores a little bit about what it's like for people to get caught up in the public eye and things like that. It is it's such a fun thing. There was really only one, not that I ever watch films to look for things to pick at, but after that was over, there was only one thing I can think of that I said, well, that was kind of, so that's a win, that's a home run, that's fantastic. So that's Breaking News in Yuba County. We love you, Allison Janney, you're fantastic. And everybody else in that cast is wonderful. And I don't think I'm giving too much away, but the body count in that movie is hysterically funny. So I recommend that. That's a good kind of escapist kind of just, I'm going to lay back on the couch and hang out and take something in. All right, so that's number 5. Number 4 is a Greek film, and it's a short Greek film. It's 11 minutes, and I watched it on the Criterion Channel. It's from 2010, and it is titled Casus Belli. Now, Casus Belli is a Latin term that means casualty of war, but it's not a war movie. This is not a war movie. Again, this is 11 minutes long, and I want to read you the IMDb synopsis. People of different genders, classes, ages, nationalities are waiting in 7 different queues, creating a huge human line. Arriving at the end of the human tale, however, the countdown begins. Now, cryptic? Yes. Does that synopsis have words you don't understand, like Q? Possibly. It's just a line. It's a French word. That's an old joke between friends. Excuse that. I'm sorry. But this was amazing. I mean, when you look at something that can capture you for such a short period of time, and again, there are a couple. So we just talked about another short film. I mean, these short films, in my thought, it's almost more difficult to tell it in a shorter period of time than it is to tell it in 90 minutes or 100 minutes. The way that the filmmaker segues between the people waiting on the particular lines is very, very interesting. Visually, this is really, really cool. And listen, it's only going to take you 11 minutes. So, what else do you have to do? All right, here we go. Number 3, another short film. This is 30 minutes. This is made by the director Bong Joon-ho, who, if you don't recognize his name, hopefully you recognize some of his films. Okja, Parasite, which won Best Picture. The Host, which is one of my favorite monster movies ever. he made this. Bong Joon-ho made this in 2004. I watched it on Criterion, and it's titled Influenza. Now, the really cool thing about this movie is that it's about a man's downward spiral into lawlessness and crime, and he's kind of losing his mind a little bit and things like that. And you see this man committing offenses, and you're like, oh, is that it? Wow, he shouldn't have done that. Is that a crime? And you see him, then it gets worse, and he starts committing crimes and everything. Now, the amazing thing about this film is that all 30 minutes are surveillance footage, closed circuit television, surveillance cameras, and parking lot cameras, parking garage cameras, bank cameras, ATM cameras, street cameras, the whole thing. And it's wild because we don't watch those a lot. But watching an entire, albeit short film, through that lens is pretty wild. Because again, you're not quite sure where you should be looking. And then you're like, oh, there he is. Oh, man, I can't believe that he did. Oh, yikes. Very, very, very interesting. And again, here to give you some different options. This is something that you've never seen anything like. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, that's to me what filmmaking is all about. Brings us to number two. Number two, I watched on Peacock. So if you have get on Peacock, and this is from 2017, and this again was number two of the films that I screened here at Cinema Wellman in June, and it is titled Dave Made a Maze, and this is an offbeat fantasy adventure comedy, and it is one of those things that, and you are going to hear me say this an awful lot, you need to see it. You don't need to listen to me talk about it. You just need to see it. So here is how it's explained. A struggling artist builds a maze out of cardboard boxes in his apartment, and he can't escape from it. Cardboard boxes, regular cardboard boxes. He builds this little fort/maze. His girlfriend comes home, and he's yelling to her, "I'm so glad you're home." And she's like, "Hey, honey, what are you doing?" "Hey, I'm going to come in." "No, do not come in here." "Wait, why not? What are you talking about?" "I can't get out. I can't find the way out." And I'll let you go from there. It's in his living room. And it's amazing how they shot this, because it's one of those things where, you walk in and you crawl into this little space, and it's this huge space. Willy Wonka, I think, did it first, right? With Gene Wilder. Remember when they went down to that little door and then they open up into this space? I mean, that kind of stuff. And it's very cool. There's a really funny part where he's really embarrassed, and he says, "Please don't tell anybody about this. The last thing I need is anybody else knowing about it." And then there's like 14 people in the apartment talking about it right in front of it. Again, on Peacock, Dave Made a Maze, and that's it. Again, it's a fantasy kind of comedy, kind of adventure. It's not heavy lifting. Smoke 'em if you got 'em, and watch. And it's it was fun. It was good stuff. It was fun stuff. All right, which brings us to number one. So we're almost at the end. So number one of the films screened in Cinema Wellman during the month of June. It was found on Amazon Prime from 2014, and it's titled The History of Time Travel. And this is a fake documentary that is played as a straight documentary, as if we have discovered time travel. And what they do with it with minimal, again, it looks like, when you watch it, it looks like a documentary. But you really have to pay attention to things that are in frame. There's little artifacts and things that change depending on what they are talking about at the time. There's a newspaper that when you see it in the beginning, it says JFK shot in Dallas, as we all know, which happened. And then later on in the film, when they're talking about time travel and this scientist did this and this scientist did that, you see the same newspaper and it says Nixon killed in Dallas. So you have to, and they're not going to point it out to you. So you really have to pay attention to this one, including how it's being presented to you, because it begins on the History Channel, and you can see the bug in the bottom of the screen. Starts on the History Channel, so where it goes from there is really interesting. And the my favorite quote from the film was one of the fake scientists in the documentary saying, if you think the idea of Hitler with a nuclear weapon is terrifying, just think about Stalin with a time machine. And again, anything time travel, you got me. I love it. History related, fantastic. So that's it. That's the top 5. That's the bottom 5 and the top 10 for June. So follow us on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Cinema Wellman. If you are listening and would like to watch, we are on YouTube. Just search Cinema Wellman. And if you are watching and prefer to listen, search for us on Spotify. All right, that's it for this episode. We will talk soon. Take care.